Hi team, I hope you're all well. Today I am going to be doing my October wrap up. I don't know what's wrong with me, but twice today I wanted to say December instead of October. I'm winding myself up. I'm doing my October wrap up, so I took part in my own readathon in the month of October, which was Supernatural-thon, and I think I failed. October just kind of got away from me a little bit. I went away in the second week of October with my family. We just went to York for a week and it was lovely, but I barely did any reading. I read 2 graphic novels and got halfway through a book that I've still not finished. So the month just really got away from me. I've finished halfway through loads of books, most of them tomes, and it just became a bit too much for me. I started getting slumpy towards the end of the month because I had too many books left and I was putting too much pressure on myself. So I am still happy with what I've got through overall, but yeah, I didn't quite complete my own readathon, which is a shame. So I will just go through with you what I read for the month, and then very quickly at the end briefly go through with you how they fit in with Supernatural-thons, so that you know how I did. So let's get started. I read overall, how many books did I read? I think I read 13 books overall, which is funny because it's October and 13 is an unlucky number, so you know, haha. The first book I read was Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. This is a horror book basically about a store that's a little bit like IKEA. It's called Orsk instead, like a low budget IKEA if you like, and the staff have noticed that things are being destroyed in the night. There's a lot more damages when they're coming in the store in the morning. Furniture's been moved around, furniture's been soiled, so they're wanting to know what's going on, and 3 of them end up staying behind one night to sort of do a sleepover, a stakeout, to try and catch the culprits. As it turns out, things may be a little bit more sinister than someone just breaking in and moving furniture around. So this is a ghost story. It's very good. It scared the shit out of me. It did what it planned to do, and yeah, I think I've definitely read a ghost story before, but it was a middle grade one. That creeped me out a little bit. I believe in ghosts, so yeah, ghost stories tend to creep me out a little bit, but overall I really enjoyed this. It's set out in... terrifying. It's just a wall with loads of writing on it that, as you go through the book, did not have writing on it before. It's set out like an IKEA catalogue, which is amazing. I just really enjoy this. I think it just gave it like an extra bit of pizzazz. So yeah, it was really good. There's a map in the front and like an Orsk store thing. It was really good. This has been left a little open-ended, so there could be a next one. I don't think there's gonna be, but there could be a second one. And this was gifted to me by Nicole, so thank you so much, Nicole, for gifting this to me for my birthday last year. I'm glad I've finally gotten to it now. I gave this 4 stars overall. It was very good. Cheeky little report there. Very good, very creepy, definitely atmospheric, perfect for this time of the year. If you are looking for a ghost story, this is the perfect one, hands down. Well, I haven't read a lot of them, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. Creeped me out to fuck. So yeah, I would recommend. It was good. Next I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, my favourite book of the year. 5 stars. I freaking love this. This book is following a young girl called Addie who is born towards the very end of the 1600s, and we basically follow her essentially we follow her a little bit when she's younger, but then from the age of 23 onwards we follow her, and we're following her in 2 different timelines. So we're following her in the early 1700s where her parents are trying to get her to marry this man. His wife has died in childbirth and he's got 4 kids and he needs a mother for the kids. So her parents are trying to get her to marry this man, and that night she makes a deal with I want to say the devil, but I don't know if he actually is the devil or whether he's just like a bit of a demon. I've not figured that out yet, but she makes a deal with this entity, if you like, where she says she wants to live longer. She doesn't want to belong to anybody. She wants to live longer so that she can go and see the world. That's basically all Addie wants to do. She just wants to go and see the world before she makes any commitments like settling down. Because she doesn't give this entity a limit of time, he basically makes her immortal, and she promises that he can have her soul when she you know, decides to come to the end of her life, he can have her soul. So basically, she is immortal, but what she doesn't realise is, because she said that she doesn't want to belong to anybody, this entity wants her soul obviously immediately, and he's kind of tricked her in a sense that no one remembers her. So nobody can remember Addie LaRue. She can walk in a room, walk out, and nobody remembers that she was in the room 5 minutes ago. Like, she's just never remembered. So he thinks that she's going to give up on life pretty easily, and he will get her soul like that very quickly. However, we're also following her 300 years later in 2014 in New York City, and this is just incredible. I love the growth that we see in Addie. So we do follow her, you know, the subsequent years following making this decision and making the deal with this entity. The entity keeps coming back, visiting her, trying to convince her that she's sick of life and she needs to hand her soul over. But she's a stubborn girl, and we're following her then 300 years later, where she goes in a bookshop and she meets a guy called Henry who remembers her, and the story just kind of goes from there. I loved this. There were so many different things going on in this book and so many different lessons learned, and also almost, I've seen other people saying this is almost, it's almost like not a lot is happening. It's not action packed, it's not, you know, it's definitely character driven, and I don't usually go for character driven books, but I just loved the way that this was written. It was beautiful. It was just, I can't put into words how much I love this book. It's just everything, absolutely everything. The second I finished it, I wanted to start it again, and I just love it so much. It's my favourite book of the year. I loved Addie as a character. I just thought she was fantastic. I love the way that she dealt with her situation. She took it on board. She struggled. Don't get me wrong, she did struggle, but she took it on board. She grew with it, and she learned how to use it to her advantage. And then Henry is the other character who I sort of I feel like I related to a bit more with how he was feeling. You get to know Henry and his story as well, and it's just so good. It packs a punch. There is a lot going on in here considering its size. It's not that big, and I just completely loved it. It was so good. I'm obsessed with this book. 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. Highly recommend. Then I read Teen Titans Beast Boy by Kami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo. This is a graphic novel. It's the second in a series. The first one was Raven, and this is following Beast Boy, and this is done in such a way that there is almost not a great deal of colour apart from flashes of, you know, like blue hair or green hair on Beast Boy or whatever. This is following a young boy called Garfield Logan, and he basically has like this beastly power where you can turn into a beast and protect himself and others around him. He doesn't realise it at the beginning of the book. What happens is it sort of happens overnight. One night he's really bummed about the fact that he's dead short and the popular guys in school are dead tall and all of this sort, and then one night he has a growth spurt and he just grows like several inches throughout the night and changes overnight, and he sort of becomes a beast. I can't remember now how or why that actually happens, whether he's made a wish or something or he's taken something. Oh, I remember now. He's taken tablets for something to do with his immune system, I think, that his parents have convinced him to take, and then one night he decides, I'm not taking this anymore. He looks into it and it's stunting his growth and he's really pissed off about it, so he stops taking the tablets, and then this happens. So this is a really good story. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I loved Raven, and now I've really enjoyed Beast Boy, and the next one, Beast Boy Loves Raven, I think it's called, is coming out in March, I'm fairly certain, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. I just really enjoy the graphics and the story. It's just really good, and I love a superhero story, so yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. It was a good one. Then I reread Pumpkinheads by Faith Erin Hicks and Rainbow Rowell. This is a graphic novel set on Halloween at a pumpkin patch where these two characters, Deja and Josiah, work, and they've been working there for the last few years. Josiah, Jose, she calls him Jose, let's just call him Jose, has been MVP, I can't remember what it means, for the last several years, but this night Deja wants to sort of take Jose on a bit of a wander around the pumpkin patch, spend some time with him. I think she's got a bit of a crush on him, but he's got this massive crush on this girl that works there, and Deja's trying to get him to go and ask her out, and they end up sort of running around the whole pumpkin patch trying to find this girl, and it's just really, really cute, and it's so fall vibe-ish, like it's just perfect for this time of year, and I really enjoy it. I read it last year, now I've read it this year. It's just beautiful. I love the illustrations, just really enjoy it as a whole. So yeah, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars again. Then I read This Time Next Year by Sophie Cousins. This I was on the blog tour for, so thank you so much to Penguin Books for sending me a copy of this. I really enjoyed this one. This was great. It's following Quinn and Minnie, who are both born on New Year's Eve. These two meet on New Year's Eve as adults, and then over the next few years you find them meeting again and again and again, and it's really, really good. I just really loved how this story happened. I just love all of the character growth. Again, a lot of these books that I've read this month have had such good character growth. It's been so nice to see characters grow over. I really like Addie LaRue was over 300 years, so the character growth in that was immense. This was over the space of, I can't remember how many years it's over, or the period of time that it's over. I think it might be over a year actually. Again, the growth is just fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Very cute story, perfect for this time of year, going perfect for fall and winter seasons. It's perfect for any time of the year, but definitely if you want, you know, the vibe, fall or winter vibe is the definite time of year to be reading this. It's so, so good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. Really enjoyed it, and it's my first Sophie Cousins book as well, so I definitely read more from her in the future. Then I read Wranglestone by Darren Charlton, so thank you to Little Tiger for sending me a copy of this, and also to Pride Book Tours for putting me on the tour for this. This is a queer YA post-apocalyptic dystopian zombie book, and I enjoyed it. It was good. The romance in here was a bit insta-lovey. Basically, this is a set of islands on Lake Wranglestone, and throughout the year the lake basically protects the people living there from the dead because they can't get across the lake. But in the winter they have to protect themselves because obviously the lake freezes over and the dead can get across the ice. They're not only competing with the dead, but they're competing with Mother Nature herself, with wolves and bears and things like that. So we're following Peter, who is just the most cinnamon roll character you've come across in your life. He's so cute. He doesn't go out like on the ice and fight with the dead or anything, or protect the town from the dead or whatever. He sort of stays home and he will sew socks or sew clothes or sew pillowcases, things like that, look after people in that sense. And he one day unfortunately gets him in a bit of bother, it gets his dad in a bit of bother, and lots of stuff happens. Now Cooper's dad, Cooper is one of the wranglers who will go out, especially in the winter months, and try and wrangle the dead, ferry the dead if you like, and try and get them away from Wranglestone. And Cooper's dad is a bit of a dick and wants Peter to go out with Cooper, because he basically says, well, if Peter's not going to help out, then they need to leave, Peter and his dad, because they're just a hindrance essentially. Peter's going to cause chaos for the town and it's not on. So Peter and Cooper start going out. Peter's had a crush on Cooper for most of his life. They have basically lived together this whole time, and only as the story starts, and I know that's kind of the point, but only as the story starts do they start talking to each other, and the relationship starts pretty quickly. Now this bothered me a little bit, because I was like, they've been living together for 17 years and only now they're just talking. Only now does it appear that Cooper's got a crush on Peter as much as Peter's got a crush on Cooper. Why have they not spoken before? This bothers me a lot. Like, I know a lot of books, romance books, sort of come together where the people bump into each other, or there's a meet cute somehow or whatever, but there's not really a meet cute in this because they've known each other all their lives. So that bothered me a little bit. It was very, very quick. The relationship basically just happened at that point and from then on. But other than that, the atmosphere in this was pretty good. I think it could have been darker. I know it's YA, but I do think it could have been a bit creepier and a bit darker. But I enjoyed it overall. I liked where the story went. The twists towards the end were very, very good. And I am excited to pick up the next one. I believe this is going to be a series. So I am looking forward to picking up the next one. And overall, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. Enjoyed Darren's writing style. It was enjoyable. I liked it. Then I read Skyward Volume 1. This is by Henderson, Garbett, Fabelli and Boland. I don't know their first names. It just has the last names. And this is the first in a series in which one day gravity on Earth suddenly becomes a fraction of what it is now. 20 years later, humanity has adapted to its new low-grav reality, and to Willa Fowler, who was born just before G-Day, is pretty awesome. So basically we're following Willa's dad initially, who I think is called Ben, and we follow him initially with his wife, and Willa is a baby in this, and it goes through what happens on G-Day, and then we jump 20 years in the future where we're following Willa, who is trying to, I think her dad's not left the house since G-Day because he couldn't save his wife. This literally happens in the first couple of pages. Couldn't save his wife, and he's not left the house since. He feels really guilty about it, and he is worried about Willa, but she has to go out and work because they need money. Her dad's not working, but he thinks that he's found a way to bring everybody back down to ground again. And I really enjoyed this. I wasn't a huge fan of the writing style of the illustrations. I felt like they were a little bit boxy and, you know, a bit square. I like neater lines, but overall I really enjoyed this, and I'm excited to continue on with the series. It's definitely a sci-fi type book, and I really enjoyed it overall. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. Then I read Mortal Instruments Volume 2. This is by Cassandra Clare and Cassandra Jean, and it is a graphic novel. In the front we just have a couple of illustrations of the characters, the Mortal Corp, and it was good. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on the basis that, I think I've mentioned this before, but on the basis that I'm not a fan of the illustrations. I have a different image in my head of what the characters look like, and that is the Mortal Instruments TV series that's on Netflix. That's what the characters look like in my head, because that's how I was introduced into the Shadowhunter world, not via the books but via the TV series. And Cassandra Clare's vision obviously is this, not the Mortal Instruments series. It is more this and the City of Bones movie. I think that's more her image in her head of how the characters look like. However, I prefer the characters from the Mortal Instruments. It's just a preference thing. It's like a personal thing completely. I know a lot of people prefer the movie over the TV series. Most people do, in fact. I think I'm very, very minority preferring the TV series over the movie. But obviously, I suppose it just depends where you started. So I started with the TV series. So for me, that's my preference. That's my sort of start point with this. This is I think it's the City of Bones. The first one I read a while ago and I gave it 3 stars. I think I've given this one 3 stars as well. I do enjoy being in the story and having it condensed a lot into, you know, a visual version, but overall I'm not a huge fan of the illustrations and stuff, but I did enjoy it. I love any sort of semblance of being within the Shadowhunter world, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read Crazy Stupid Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is the 3rd in the Bromance Book Club series, and the Bromance Book Club follows a group of guys who basically have come together and started this book club where they read romance books and use what they learn from the romance books to help keep their wives or girlfriends or woo women as well. Maddie read Bromance Book Club recently and said that it's quite manipulative. I get what she's saying, especially in the first book. Hadn't really thought of it that way before, but I do get what she's saying. But similarly, I just think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really great that guys are coming together and reading romance novels to help them with women a little bit. Like, it's not done, what I like about it is that I get what she's saying, but what I like about it is that it's not, I've got something in my eye, is that it's not done in a seedy way. as such. So like it's not done in such a way that the guys can just go around picking up women all the time and getting laid. They're not doing it for that sort of. So the first one follows Gavin, who is trying to keep his wife Thea. They've basically had an argument about something. He's walked out and then he wants back in, but he's just not sure how he can get over what the argument was about. It was a pretty big lie that's been, it wasn't cheating or anything, it's just within the relationship. And the Bromance Book Club come together and try and help him out. And I think I get where she's going with what Maddie's saying, but I just really think it was very cleverly done. I thought it was really good. The second book is following Mac and Liv. Liv is Thea's sister. Mac is kind of like the bad guy, deemed the bad guy. Bit of a dick in the first book, and I didn't think I was going to enjoy that, but I actually loved it more than the first one. It's following them two, enemies to lovers. So the first one is Second Chance Romance, the second one is Enemies to Lovers, this one is Friends to Lovers, and it's adorable. We're following Alexis and also Noah. Noah is an IT guy, he's a whiz kid, basically went to MIT, very clever man. He used to be a hacktivist and he now is on the straight and narrow and basically just helps people out with their IT, and he has managed to get into the Bromance Book Club in such a way that, well, he just hangs out with the guys really. He's not in the book club to start off with, but he eventually gets in the book club, and it's kind of done in such a way that he does IT on the computers for one of the guys in the club. So that's how he is associated with them, because most of these guys are actually sports personalities, if you like. So they are NBA players, or, you know, NFL players or whatever. They play sports, whereas Noah obviously hasn't. He's just an IT guy. And then Alexis runs a cafe called Toe Beans, and basically the cafe is where survivors of sexual assault can come and kind of get together and hang out. And so she was a victim of sexual assault that happens in the second book. So these books do very much so follow on from each other. I would highly recommend reading them in order. You can read them as standalones, but I would highly recommend reading them in order. What happens in the book previous affects massively what happens in the next book. And basically we're following these two. So Noah and Alexis have been friends since they met in the first book. Throughout this whole sexual assault thing, and then they just kind of come together. This also covers a very serious topic of organ donation as well, which is dealt with very well. Lyssa Kay Adams knows what she's talking about. Her husband, it's mentioned in the back, her husband has donated one of his organs to his sister. So yeah, it's just very well done. I thought that the organ donation thing was a really important subject matter to be dealing with. I've never seen it in a book before, so it was amazing. Really loved it, enjoyed the whole premise of it, loved Noah and Alexis, thought they were great, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. Next I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. Thank you so much to Hodder and Stoughton for sending me a copy of this. This is the arc. Obviously I am waiting for my copy to come through, and I loved this. As you can see, I have tabbed this up to death. I really enjoyed this. This is following two sisters, Amelia and Vittoria, in Sicily, and their parents own their grandma, actually, their nonna, runs a restaurant called Sea and View. I think it's a Sicilian restaurant, and they both work there. They're 18, I think they are. And we basically follow them both. Their nonna is a witch, they are witches also, and I think it's the dad that's a witch, I can't remember. And basically one day they go to work, Amelia goes to work, and Vittoria doesn't turn up, and she's trying to figure out what's happened to her. She goes down to the monastery where she has a friend there called Antonio, who she's had a crush on for a very long time, but obviously he's a man of God now, and you know, they can never do anything like that. So she goes down to the monastery and ends up finding her sister dead, with her chest ripped open and her heart missing. She finds a man stood over her sister, and he ends up getting away. And then she ends up, it turns out that her sister's been dealing with black magic a little bit and trying to summon the devil, and this goes a little bit deeper than she thinks, and she ends up dabbling with the black magic and trying to summon a demon that will help her try and figure out what's happened to her sister. But what she ends up summoning is one of the princes of hell, who is Wrath. And the story goes from there. Wrath tries to help Amelia out with finding out what happened to Victoria, but it turns out he may have a different agenda than Amelia does, and the story just kind of goes from there. We spent the whole of this book basically just wanting, shipping a relationship that I don't know what's gonna happen, where it's gonna go. I did not see the end coming to this at all. I need the next book immediately. I cannot believe I've got to wait for over a year now to get the book. I'm devastated, but this was so good. I loved Kerry's writing style. I have read the Stalking Jack the Ripper series and I loved it so much. It was well good. But the writing style in this was fantastic. It was great to be back with Kerry's writing, and I loved everything that happened in this. I loved Wrath. I loved Amelia. I thought she was great. She's dead sassy. She's her own woman. She's really independent. She doesn't rely on anybody, and I just thought it was so good. I enjoyed it so much. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It's fantastic. I think you all should read it. Then I read The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty, which is the third and final book in the Daevabad trilogy. I totally thought this was going to get 5 stars, but it got 4.5. It was very close, but it just didn't give me that 5-star feeling. The Daevabad trilogy follows a young girl called Nahri, who is she's training to be a doctor essentially, but she also kind of does other stuff as well, like pickpocketing and things like that. And she lives in Cairo with a guy who kind of like looks after her and helps her out. He's the doctor, she helps him out. And then one day she accidentally lets loose a djinn called Dara, who tells her that she is not who she thinks she is, and she has to go with him to Daevabad so that they can figure out what's going on and she can find out who she is. And we also follow Prince Ali, who is one of the princes in Daevabad, and the story kind of goes from there. I don't know how to explain it much more than that, to be honest. This is amazing. Lots of magic, lots of djinn, loads of other different types of magical creatures, and I just really enjoyed where this story went, what it did. I love the fact that it's set in Egypt. I just really loved that a lot, and yeah, it was amazing. It got lots of family dynamics in it, and also friends and relationships, things like that, marriages of convenience, relationships that you ship in, relationships where you might be shipping a person with several different people. There's so much going on. It was just amazing, very atmospheric. I really fell into the story when I was reading it. It was so good. But these books are chunky, like, don't get it twisted, these books are chunky. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars overall. I think the whole series, I gave City of Brass 4, and then I gave the last two 4.5. So overall I think the series would get like a 4.5 stars. It was so good. Definitely one of my favourite series now, and I would love to reread it in the future, in which it would probably get more stars if I sat down, you know, and properly committed the time to it and didn't read it over a month. I read it over like a week or two instead. But yeah, loved it a lot. 4.5 stars. I'm glad to have the trilogy finished now though. That's probably the quickest I've gotten through a trilogy like that. Then I read Frankenstein by Junji Ito. This is a manga which has Frankenstein in the first half of it, and then a series, like a collection of short stories that end up coming together and just kind of being one bind of a story essentially. And I really enjoyed this. The illustrations in here are obviously quite dark. It is a horror manga, but the story towards the end is quite, I don't know how to explain it. There is a lot of body horror in here basically, and it freaked me out, and I don't do body horror. I would like to read more by Junji Ito, but the body horror got me. I don't know if it's up my street. I'm just not sure if there's something that I can carry on reading. I think I'm going to check with Cody and see how much body horror the likes of Uzumaki and I think it's called Jio or something as well is, because I know that Smashed, one of his other ones in this series if you like, has got a lot of body horror in it. So yeah, but overall I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I've read the Frankenstein story before. I read it last year but just didn't carry on and read the rest, so now I have read the whole thing and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was great. Then I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. I gave this 3 stars and I'm a little bit bummed about it. This is the first in the Last Hours series, And I think the thing I struggle with the most in this is the characters. So there is a lot of characters in here. Basically, you are following the children of the people from the Infernal Devices. So I wouldn't recommend picking this up till you've read the Infernal Devices, because it will spoil a lot in the Infernal Devices, and I actually think you'd be more confused if you haven't read the Infernal Devices. But not only are we following the children from the Infernal Devices, so the kids that are not yet born in the Infernal Devices, but we're following the characters from the Infernal Devices as well. So you've got 7 kids in here that you're kind of following. I say kids, like 18 years old. 7 kids in here that you're following, plus all of their parents as well. The parents don't make a huge, they're not in here a lot, but they are in here, they're prominent. So there is a lot of characters to follow, and it's just very confusing. You've got like Lucy and James are the main characters from the Infernal Devices kids. I'm not telling you whose they are, because there's a love triangle all the way through the Infernal Devices, and it doesn't happen until the very last book, the end of the last book. You don't find out who gets together. So it's their kids, and then you've got Matthew, who is James's parabatai, and I can't remember whose kid he is. And then you've got Cordelia and Alistair Carstairs, who I can't remember, Elias and Sona's kids, I think. You've got Grace and Jessie Blackthorne. You've got who else is in this? Anna, I can't remember, I don't know who the fuck's kid she is. I can't even remember her last name. You've got, who else is in here? Thomas and Christopher, who I think are Blackthorns as well, but they are Grace and Jessie's cousins, I think. There's just so much going on in here, and this is the problem. Do you know what this could have benefited from, and it probably would have given it an extra star? A family tree. That's all that it needed, was a family tree, so that I could keep going back and referencing to it. I was buddy reading this with Tilly. She had the same problems as I did, and I think she gave it 3.5 stars. We've not actually discussed it yet. I need to message her. But overall, I enjoyed the story. It was just very convoluted, and because you're thrown in the deep end with the characters, eventually you do get to know who's who a little bit, and it does kind of come together towards the end, but I am still very confused. And I know that when the next one comes out in a year's time, I'm going to have to reread this to know who the fuck is whose. Parabatai, cousin, brother, sister, who is who. So yeah, I do feel like it was a lot jam-packed into this book. I know it's chunky, but there was a lot happened, a lot. So yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I think Cordelia is my favourite character through the whole book, which I wasn't expecting. I thought I was going to hate her, but I actually really loved her. I think she's my favourite character. I enjoyed James, and I think Matthew's alright, and Lucy's cool as well. But overall, Cordelia is definitely my favourite character. And yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. I feel a little bit let down by it, to be honest, because that's the lowest, other than the graphic novels, that's the lowest I've ever given a Shadowhunter book, so it makes me sad. Maybe on a reread, it might click a bit better, but I think for a first time round, it definitely could have benefited from a family tree map. 100%. And then the final book that I read in the month of October was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackay. This is just a cute little collection of some illustrations by Charlie with some quotes, and it's just beautiful. The boy is quite lonely. He makes friends with the mole, who's obsessed with cake, and then they make friends with the fox, who threatens to kill the mole, but the fox is stuck in a trap, and the mole says, well, you can't kill me if you don't get out of the trap, but I can get you out of the trap. So then they become friends, and then they come across the horse, who has got major, you know, self-doubt problems going on. And overall, this is just beautiful. I loved it so much. I think my favourite page is this one, in which there's a quote and an illustration, then in the bottom in pencil, Charlie's written, my dog walked over the drawing, clearly trying to make the point. The point was, the greatest illusion, said the mole, is that life should be perfect. And then the page looks like this because Charlie's dog walked all over it while the ink was still wet. I just love this so much. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is going to be well thumbed by the time my nephew gets hold of it. I bought it for him, but I think I'm definitely going to want to go back and reread this over and over and over and over again. And I do think quite a lot of these quotes are quite prevalent, is that the word I'm looking for at the moment, with everything going on in the world at the moment with the virus and everything. We've just gone into a second lockdown in the UK, so I do think that this is a beautiful book that honestly I believe every single household should have a copy. 100%. This should be like on the curriculum or some shit. It's just so good. I loved it so much. 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, overall I had a really good reading month. Now to sort of divide this up between Supernatural-thon, I don't think I've gone through and double checked this. Okay, so first prompt was Devil's Trap, to have a book with a symbol on the cover. So for this one I've got Wranglestone. I don't know why I was going to say Waterstone. Wranglestone, which has a snowflake on the cover, which is part of the whole, there's a reason for it in the book. Then we've got All Hell Breaks Loose, a book with supernatural being in the cover. Again, I went for Wranglestone. It's got zombies in it and other supernatural beings that I don't want to spoil. Cassandra Clare could have worked for this as well. Sorry, Chain of Gold could have worked for this as well, because this has got warlocks and demons and all other kinds of supernatural beings in it. So that could have worked for that one. Then we have Mystery Spot, which is a reread, and for that I reread Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hick. Then we have Yellow Fever, a comedy horror, so I read Horror Store, obviously. This started out as a comedy and ended in horror. Changing Channels, a book to movie adaptation. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to nail this, but this is a movie and also a TV series, so yes for me. I just realised that just now. The French Mistake was to read a sci-fi, so I read Skyward, which is amazing. Death's Door, a sad book, so I went for Empire of Gold in the end because it's the last in the series and I was gutted that it was over, so I went for that one. Then we have LARP and The Real Girl, a queer fantasy. So Addie LaRue was queer and it's a fantasy. Then we have Fanfiction, a book with fanfiction. That can have a book with fanfiction in it, or it can have been started as fanfiction. Again, The Mortal Instruments started out as fanfiction. It was started off as a Draco and Ginny fanfiction, I think. So yeah, for those of you that didn't know, surprise. Baby, read a book with a vehicle on the cover. I don't have a single book on this list that has a vehicle on the cover, which is shocking. Somebody did ask me one day whether or not a horse could count. So this could count, I suppose, because although a horse is not a vehicle, it is an animal. You can ride a horse, and I did say that you can adapt this to sort of bend to your will. So in theory, that could count. But yeah, not a single one of these books has a vehicle on the cover. How hard is it to find a book that has a vehicle on the cover? So yeah, not a single one, other than The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. That could kind of count. The next one was Regarding Dean, a book featuring witches. Kingdom of the Wicked has witches in it. Scooby Natural, a graphic novel. For this one I had Beast Boy, Skyward, The Mortal Instruments, Pumpkinheads. I read a lot of graphic novels in the month of October. Lebanon, a book about family. Again, Kingdom of the Wicked works. So does Wranglestone a little bit. And Crazy Stupid Bromance has got found family in it. Yeah. Oh, also this, massively family, huge family. And then finally Carry On, My Wayward Son, the next in a series. So Crazy Stupid Bromance would work, The Mortal Instruments would work. Yeah, they would work for this. So yeah, it turns out there's only Baby that I didn't really nail, and in theory the horse could count for that, so yay for me. So yeah, overall I had a really good, well, a relatively good reading month. I am still halfway through Crooked Kingdom, Crush by Tracy Wolff, and also, what else am I halfway through? Oh, Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. So I do still have those to finish. I'm hoping to get to them in the month of November. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Oh, I'm also halfway through Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and still halfway through The Wolf in the Water by Josie Jaffrey. I'm halfway through way more books than I thought I was. So yeah, maybe I'll get them finished in November. We'll see. I've got other books now on my TBR that I'm very excited about. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you got to the end, leave me a snowflake because of Wranglestone. I don't know why, I just really like the snowflakes. Yeah, and I shall hopefully see you next time. Bye for now.